everybody, welcome back to our channel and welcome back to Memorial May. Every single day this month I am driving around my area of Melbourne, Florida looking for historical markers so that I can film what's there today and learn a little bit more about my city and take you guys along with me. I hope you're enjoying this series so far. Today we're in Merritt Island. Now that's a little bit north of Melbourne by about a 30-minute drive. But there were a couple places up here I was really interested in, so I came up here. It's did I say about a 30-minute drive? Truck went by, squirrel. I come up here once a month for Flute Circle, and then Michael and I come up here periodically because there's a kombucha-ery up here called Big Dog Kombucha that we really like. But that's just about it. I don't really know anything about Merritt Island. And I saw there were two sites that I want to combine into one video because I feel like this is an important person that needs to be recognized in the month of Memorial May. This person is Dennis Sawyer. There is a church here in Merritt Island and a cemetery where he is buried, and I would like to learn more about Dennis Sawyer. So come on with me, let's check out these sites. You're getting a twofer. Two historical markers in one video. Let's go.
Today's adventure brings us to North Merritt Island to hunt for two historical markers. And we are going to start the story of Dennis Sawyer here at this church. These markers were recently erected in 2020. Edwin Dennis Sawyer was born in 1874 in Nassau in the Bahamas. He was the second child of a freed slave named Alfred Sawyer. From the ages of 18 to 25, Sawyer worked as a cook's helper on a ship and ultimately in Fort Pierce, Florida as a fisherman. In 1898, after moving to Cocoa, Florida, he married Rebecca Dallas. The couple moved to Merritt Island to build a home and they raised 5 children together. In 1902, Sawyer applied for U.S. citizenship. Sawyer worked hard and cared for his family and for his community. When Dennis and Rebecca first settled on Merritt Island, there was no church for black families, so he organized and helped build the Mount Olive AME Church on Tropical Trail in 1908. The Sawyer House was just a few hundred feet from the church, which became known as the Little Wooden Church built too close to the road. There were also no schools for either black or white children at the time. Although he went to work after only completing a 5th grade education, Sawyer firmly believed in establishing a means of education for the children growing up on Merritt Island. In 1931, Sawyer arranged for the construction of a 2-room schoolhouse that was later known as Merritt Junior High. The school achieved the distinction of exhibiting at the Florida Hall in the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago, with Sawyer supplying vegetables from his own garden for the exhibit. Sawyer was adept at reinventing himself and worked hard his entire life. He grew vegetables, fruit, and sugarcane on his land, and he was often seen around town traveling door to door in a rickety produce wagon pulled by his mule named Maud. He also captained the tugboat Mystic, which pulled fruit barges to Cocoa for loading onto the Florida East Coast Railway. For extra income, he would also row residents out to Cocoa Beach. Sawyer and his mule Maud were regular fixtures at local parades, and on Saturdays he would take island residents to the town of Cocoa for shopping or for movies at the Aladdin Theater, which is now called the Cocoa Village Playhouse. He also skippered a trade boat that ran as far south as Jupiter. He later picked citrus, and by the 1930s he struck out on his own as a trucking farmer. He also owned a 2-story building known as Sawyer's Hall, which had space for community and Masonic Lodge meetings, a small store, and even living quarters he could rent out. Dennis and his wife Rebecca were said to be kind-hearted people who always helped out their friends and neighbors, whether they were black or white. Dennis was a 33rd degree Mason, and he took his role very seriously. He often acted as a mediator of racial conflicts. He was respected not only in the black community, but also among the white families also. Dennis Sawyer died in 1964 and was buried at the little African American cemetery of the church that he had helped to establish. The memorial park was established in 1956 when 3 acres of land were deeded for use as a cemetery. It was originally managed by the Mount Olive AME Church, but the cemetery deteriorated due to neglect and vandalism. Dennis's final resting site is unidentified, but there is a new marker honoring his legacy, noting that Dennis is remembered for his fine produce, his generous nature, and his excellent character. Rebecca Sawyer died in 1960. Her grave marker has deteriorated but remains readable. There is a concrete slab marker similar in design to Rebecca's, which may be Dennis's gravestone. A survey uncovered 6 other grave sites in this cemetery. One is marked M.I. Bowman, who was a 6-year-old child that died in 1962. Only broken pieces of concrete remain for the other 5 graves. In 1963, 2 acres of the cemetery were deeded back, leaving only 1 acre for the cemetery. A portion of that last acre became property of Brevard County and was transformed into a park. The remaining property, which belonged to the Dennis Sawyer Cemetery, was transferred to Brevard County in 1972 when the owner defaulted on unpaid taxes. Historians estimate that there are 3,000 lost black cemeteries in Florida. In 2021, Florida created a coalition of archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians to find and properly preserve forgotten burials. So far, hundreds of grave sites have been rediscovered in Florida.
Alright, I know I cut this video kind of short. The cemetery was actually on private property, so I did not feel comfortable stepping over the markers onto the property to film any better, which is unfortunate. I would have loved to have been able to see that granite slab a lot better. And also the church, I was expecting it to be abandoned, but it looks like it may actually still be in service. I'll have to check that out. But they do have security cameras, and I don't want to linger here too long and look like I'm up to no good. But I hope you enjoyed this twofer and learning with me more about who Dennis Sawyer was. I think this is an excellent example of someone who really bridged the gap in a time when there was an extremely large gap between the whites and the African Americans in the United States. And I think he played an important role and needs to be remembered as someone who was working towards uniting the two. At least that's what I got from his markers and what I'm getting from his research. So I hope that this video can be appreciated and understood. I felt like this was certainly worth remembering, and revisiting these historical markers here on Merritt Island. I'm glad that I learned something new about Merritt Island, and this is a nice story I have to pass on and tell other people. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you're enjoying this series. I'll meet you guys another day at another marker. Bye, everybody.